Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lisa Jaster, Major U.S. Army Reserve, graduate U.S. Army Ranger School.
Good morning. How many here are former military or currently serving? Okay. As Veterans Day approaches, thanks. I only want to say that to point out if you haven't been in the military, go ahead and watch them. When they laugh, you have to laugh. You see, there's some criteria to military storytelling. There's 3 major things for every military story. The first one is, if it's a training story, it had to be crappy weather, right? It's raining, it's muddy, it's cold. The second rule for military storytelling is it only needs to be 10% truth. So you think about fishermen, take that times about 5 and you've got a military story. And the third criteria for a good military story is it has to start with, so no shit, there I was. So no shit, there I was. Army Ranger School. Very exciting, right? There's the first phase, it's the walk phase. As you go into the field, you start by jumping out of an airplane. Let me explain something to you. I jumped out of an airplane for the first time in 1998. I did it again in 1999. And then I did it again at 37 in 2015. So there was a slight gap between the last time I threw myself from a perfectly good moving aircraft until Ranger School. So I go out the door the first time I'm starting Ranger School. I'm excited. We're going into the field. I'm doing something that no female has ever done, jumping into a Ranger training area. The second time I threw myself out of the airplane because I had to repeat the first phase, I'm like, okay, I'm good. Feet and knees together, checking my risers. This is easy. Old hat. Very exciting. I used to say when I was younger, because we're all stupid when we're younger, I hope I die jumping out of a plane because it's gorgeous, and then splat. And these are the things that went through my 20-something-year-old mind. At 37, when I have to repeat the first phase for the 3rd time in a row, I get out of the airplane, check canopy gain, canopy control, making sure my chute's good, look out at that gorgeous horizon, and I start to sob. What am I doing here? I'm 37 years old. The average Ranger School graduate is 22. And male. All of them. So Chris Shea and I are jumping in, and we're the only females to be doing this. Why the hell am I here? But I hit the ground like a sack of potatoes. As always, I landed feet, butt, head. Shook it off, saw the guys running off, grabbed my gear, and started out. I was going to start again on this adventure. I wasn't going to quit, and I wasn't going to get defeated. But again, why? Why would I want to go to Ranger School? This is a really busy slide. This is for those of you who don't have the pleasure of knowing what that school's about. Yes, the average age is 22. You sleep an average of 3.5 to 4.5 hours. Remember, that's an average, so a lot of times it's less. Once in a while, they have to give you more. This is just a picture of what that school is. But why? Why would I want to go? How many here are parents? Daughters? Sons. Okay, so here's a conversation I had with one of my very good friends. We went to basic training together in 1996. When I told him that I was interested in going into Ranger School, the first thing he said to me is, we have to protect our women. Okay, what does that mean? Remember, he's my buddy. He's like, I don't really believe that women need to be in the military. And we need to protect our women. I said, Clint, you gotta tell me. Now the dude's name's Clint, so, okay. But Clint's talking to me and he's like, If I had a son and he got a flat tire on the side of the road and he called me, I'd be like, suck it up, buttercup, change your tire, get home when you can, right? We all believe that's probably something you would say to a young kid. All right, well, if my daughter had the same flat tire in the same location, I would tell her to lock the doors and keep her cell phone on, and I'll be right there. So I, of course, am in utter shock. I'm like, Clint, so you're going to raise a victim? And he's like, no, I'm protecting my daughter. I said, protecting her. And then this is how I brought him over to the dark side. I said, so rather than your daughter being competent and capable of changing her tire and getting back on the road and getting home safe, you're going to have her sit on the side of the road waiting for some stranger to come help her? No, I'll be right there. Oh, yeah? I know that when I'm driving with my dad or my husband or my brother or by myself and I see somebody stranded on the side of the road, especially if they've got a flat tire and it looks like they've got no clue what they're supposed to do, I pull over. So not only are you building a victim, but you're exposing your daughter to dangers that she otherwise wouldn't be exposed to. So when I wrapped it up like that, he's like, okay, yeah, but why should you go to Ranger School? I said, it's the same thing. I'm still going across the pond. I'm still going to be leading soldiers. Don't you think you want me being as competent and capable as possible? Let's stop making it a gender issue. Let's stop talking about my strength or the mystical bro bond of integrating men and women in a combat zone. Let's just talk about a training event. If you're going to train men to be awesome, shouldn't you train women to be awesome too? Just a little question I had for him. I have to keep this over here, otherwise I'll probably throw it across the stage, so I'm sorry. So I got to learn a lot while I was at that school. Everybody asks how much you learn about yourself. When you go to a leadership school where they don't feed you and you don't eat, you don't sleep a whole lot, everybody comes back and they tell about what they learned about themselves. At 37, I had a pretty good grasp of who Lisa Jaster was. What I didn't understand is why I was doing this. Of course, equality, we talk about that. I went to this school thinking, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to show the world that I can do some things that nobody ever expected me to be able to do. What I didn't realize was that wasn't my final goal. That wasn't my end state. So the first week of Ranger School is called Rap Week. It's 4 days. I know, we call it Rap Week. It's Army. The first day is a physical fitness test. Includes a 5-mile run, chin-ups, push-ups, sit-ups. 400 people showed up on day 0 to report to my Ranger School class. Only 300 made it to breakfast. 101 people, okay, so 299 made it to breakfast. 101 people failed that physical fitness test on the first day before breakfast even started. They had $2,000 worth of gear, plus whatever the Army issued them. They had all shaved their heads, including me. You like my haircut? Yeah, pretty nice, huh? I'm telling you, I got lots of attention for that one. 400 people showed up and had trained 4 months, some of them for years, and they didn't even make it to breakfast. That's crazy. So for 4 days, you are standing, running, jumping, climbing, obstacle courses, water survival tests, knife fighting classes. They were really dumb. It sounds a lot cooler than it really is. But on the last day, the last event is a 12-mile Ruck March. And you have to do it at a really good pace. And the ruck's kind of heavy. But if you've served before, we've all done the 12-mile road march, or a lot of us have, and it's not that hard, unless you haven't slept in 4 days and you haven't eaten a whole lot. Then it's really hard. So I'm kind of tired during my road march. And I keep a laminated picture of my kids in my pocket, and it's got my daughter and son, and they're both she's wearing like a Wonder Woman shirt, and my son's wearing a Batman shirt. And I had laminated it and written on there, I need to be their superhero. And so I would pull that out every once in a while to remind myself to keep pushing. And I get to the point where I'm pretty far behind. I'm looking at my watch, I'm looking at the mile markers, and I think there is no way I can pass. First thing that goes through my head is, man, I have to do this for the next generation of women. Pretty noble. Then I'm like, I got to do this for my kids. And then about mile 10, man, I cut my hair for this shit. And literally the only reason I crossed the finish line in under 3 hours was because I couldn't possibly go back to work with that haircut without the tab. But it was kind of interesting because you start getting real tired, and I was a little delirious probably. And each of the mile markers are marked with chem lights. So these little glow-in-the-dark sticks, it's still dark out, and they're stuck to water, a water point. So you can fill your canteens or stop, tie your shoes, whatever. But every mile is marked with these chem lights. Well, I decided those last couple miles, I'm going to run to each chem light. So I'm going to walk until I feel better, and then I'm just going to run until I get to the chem light. And then I'm going to walk, and then I'm going to run. And I did this like walk-run thing because I was going to finish in time. Well, I get about mile 11 and a half, and the chem light, I just can't seem to make it there. Like, I'm wondering, I got to be close to the finish line. Well, I would get close to the chem light, and then the chem light would move away. And then I got close to the chem light, and then I passed the chem light, and then I realized the chem light was attached to a person. So I'd been chasing somebody who had been marked with a chem light because they had been a previous heat casualty. So the instructors wanted to make sure to watch him so that he didn't pass out during the workout or during the road march. Oddly enough, me running after him is the reason why he was moving so fast. We both got a really good time because we were both chasing each other. It was really funny, and I felt really bad for the guy. He ended up not making it even to the next day because he did become a heat casualty, and he blamed that on me because he said the reason why he pushed so hard is not only did he want to finish, but he couldn't be beaten by a woman. The really cool thing about it, though, is it's really hot, so they cut these 55-gallon drums in half, and they set them on stilts on their side. And the ranger instructors fill them with big ice blocks and water. So when you're done with this, to lower your core body temperature, you're supposed to put your hands, your forearms in the water. I guess it's a way to really quickly cool your body down. So I'm about dying because I ran a lot faster than I should have. So not only do I put my arms in there, I also, please don't judge me, I put my head in there. It's really nasty. So I'm sitting there in the water with my forehead and forearms in the water, and I'm trying to cool down. And then I hear in a really creepy voice, this guy who's right next to me with his hands in the water, he's like, "Hey, Jaster, I'm sorry." That's what he said. He whispered in my ear. Now, Ranger School students aren't supposed to be talking to each other. So this guy is leaning over and whispering in my ear, and I think it's creepy as hell. And he's just saying, "I'm sorry." And finally, I can't keep my cool anymore. I'm like, "Dude, what's up?" He's like, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the things I ever said about you that you'll never hear and you'll never know. When I heard about women coming into school, I thought, they don't belong here. And you just kicked my ass in a road march." And I thought, wow, I changed his opinion. And his name's King James. We ended up being really good friends. He and I actually went out the door together that day. I had my little meltdown in the air. But he's an SF medic. He's been a hard charger his whole military career, and he thought I could never work with women. But his opinion quickly changed. And he asked me, he's like, "How can you do this? How can you be out here with us doing what you're doing? How come you're not falling behind? You know, in the real Army, the women are already always in the rear, and they've lost their gear, and they can't hold their own stuff." And I said, "Man, I was built for this. You know, don't judge everyone." He goes, "You know, my wife's pretty tough, but she couldn't do this." And I looked at him straight in the eyes and said, "Yeah, women like me wouldn't marry men like you." So King James and I ended up being really good friends, and his name was actually James King, so that's why I called him King James. We ended up being really good friends, and we talked about a lot of stuff. It's funny the relationships you build, though. So I kept failing at Ranger School. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with my story or with the school, but it's a 62-day school that I took 186 days to complete. Very proud of that. That's stellar. And if you're Army, you'll understand the Real Rangers recycle saying. But yeah, if you want to have real street cred, you have to do everything at least twice. So I'm there. I actually go through it 2 times. I go through the first phase twice. And usually if you fail any one of the phases 2 times, they kick you out, especially if it's for the same reason. But Ranger School is like the Army's version of Survivor. You can get voted off the island. What I didn't know is you could get voted on the island. So as I'm waiting for the brigade commander to tell me that I'm getting kicked out, one of my instructors that graded me came up to me and said, "Hey, Jaster, if they ever open this class to women," remember, I was in the first experimental class, so Ranger School wasn't open to women. They just allowed women to come to one class and one class only. So once we got kicked out, that was it. No more girls in the boys' club. So he's like, "Hey, if they ever open this up to women, you deserve to come back. You deserve to be the first female to graduate from this school." And I thought, wow, that's a lot to say from a guy whose whole life is the Ranger community. That's a big leap for him. I thought about it a little bit, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm getting kicked out now, so that's all that matters. And one of my other buddies who was also in the same boat as me, he was going to get kicked out. We decided that we were going to, right here and right now, while we're waiting to see the brigade commander, while we're waiting to get officially kicked out, start our lives. We weren't going to live in the past. We were going to set our new goals. And we decided that when it was time to get off post, we were going to go straight to the gym. We were going to get our bodies back. We were going to eat healthy. We were writing down our food plans and our workout plans, and we decided, hell, let's start right now. So we're literally waiting in line to be told whether or not we're getting kicked out, and we start doing air squats, and we're doing dips on the little welcome to Ranger School sign, and we're doing PT overhead claps, like we're working out. And I was the last person to go through to see the brigade commander. And as I walked in, he said, "What makes you think you could do this?" And I looked at the colonel, and I was like, interesting question when you're about to kick somebody out of school. I am completely clueless, by the way, at this point. I'm like, well, it's easy. He goes, "It's easy, but you failed twice." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I know this stuff." He goes, "Well, how come you can't get done?" I'm like, "I don't know, but it's easy. I can do this." And he's like, "Okay. Well, you got voted back on the island." He said, "Your peers were so high that everyone in your squad who voted on you put you in the top 3 in your squad, which meant that somehow you knew what you were doing. Maybe it didn't show up in graded patrols, but your team has voted you back on the island. I will let you stay if right now you do 49 perfect Ranger push-ups." Yeah. So a Ranger push-up. This isn't from your knees. This isn't slightly past parallel. This is touch. Make those dog tags hit the ground and extend those elbows. And I had just been working out with my buddy. Yeah. So I did 49 of the most miserable-looking, wobbly push-ups, chest to ground, elbows locked up, but a bunch of weaving in between that you have ever seen. It was sad. The colonel looked at me, laughed heartily, and said, "Get out of here." I had to stand outside, and all these Ranger instructors are walking by, going to their break room, just yelling at me as they go, because that's what you do when you see a Ranger School student. And I'm just standing there with my back against the wall. "Get in here, Jaster. For some reason, people think you're good at this. You can stay." First thing that went through my head, fuck. I mean, I was set. I had written down my goals. And even bigger, fuck. I have to call my husband, who's been alone with a 3- and 6-year-old. for 2 months. Hey, honey. So I finally did get to call him. It was a couple hours later, and I had literally, in my little smart book, written out what I was going to say to him, because I really didn't want him to leave me while I was at Fort Benning. And during that time, I'm sitting here going, how am I going to present this to him? So I call him, and I'm like, hey, baby, you know I can't quit, right? He's like, I know, but we all read in the newspaper. I'm sorry. I know you're coming home. We still love you, and I'm going grocery shopping tonight. Like he had his plan on how he was going to welcome me home. He had hired a cleaning lady so that I didn't have to see the manscaping that occurred while I was gone. And by the way, I still have a wrestling mat in my living room thanks to that 6 months. I can't even argue that point now. He's like, hey, you left me alone with the kids. So I'm like, hey, baby, I got to tell you something. Not tomorrow, but in 3 weeks. So there was a 3-week gap. They're going to start a new Ranger School class. And they've offered me a spot to start all the way from the beginning again. And he was mad. He wasn't mad at me. He was kind of mad at the situation. But he, like any good supporting spouse, didn't think that there was a chance in hell that it could have been my fault that I didn't pass. So his immediate response was, why do you think they'll let you pass this time? Notice the words, the supportive spouse words. Why do you think they will let you pass? Very nice, very good. Why do you think they'll let you pass? And I said, you know what, honey? When I came here, it was to change the world. It was to prove something to myself and to others. It was to change the conversation, because the conversation has always been, well, women can't physically do what men can do. Well, I can't physically do what my husband can do because he's 6'9", 260 pounds. But there's a few things he can't do, like get all the way down in a good snatch position. He can't get a front rack, and he can't crawl into small spaces. So, I bring some benefits to the fight. Our house is set up nice. I get all the cabinets here. He gets everything up there. So I said, but what's funny is while I was at Ranger School, I discovered something. It wasn't about proving to the world that I could do this or that women could do this. It was that each of those men that I've been in the field with, they came here believing that I didn't belong. They truly, deep down in their heart, thought, this girl doesn't belong here. And every time I ran next to them with a rucksack, every time I carried the 240, I carried the big gun, and they carried my ammo, and they were my support staff. Every time I helped them write an operations order, that guy, who might someday be the sergeant major of the Army, might be a brigade commander, hell, might just be a platoon leader and have 40 guys underneath him. He now has a different perspective. He now looks at women slightly differently and says, wait, maybe I can push her a little harder. So I'm on the phone with my husband, and I said, I am changing the Army one future leader at a time, just by sitting next to him, just by trading pound cake in our MREs. One soldier at a time. And he's like, yeah, but that's an uphill battle. You can't change the whole Army one person at a time. And I just said, watch me. And he goes, I'll see you when I see you, baby. I love you. We're thriving at home. Don't you dare come home without that tab. And I didn't talk to him again for a long time. But you see the major lesson, what I want to throw out there to you. I couldn't quit. The naysayers will always be naysayers. The people who didn't believe that I would pass still believe there's some sort of conspiracy theory, that somehow when I was working in China right before I went to Ranger School, that I was getting some sort of special treatment and preparation for Ranger School. Those people will always believe in conspiracy theories. And the people who thought that women could do it are still cheerleaders. But one-on-one interactions, those little battles, those little fights, those little incidents are what's going to change people's hearts and minds. At the end of the day, the fight isn't over. This isn't even necessarily about equality. This isn't about men and women. This is about judging each other on our competences and our capabilities. Our competency and our capabilities. And how do we do that? One person at a time. The fight continues, and I won't quit. Thank you.